In 2020, small business owners made lots of decisions on the fly to keep their businesses afloat. But as we are rolling into a new year, it's a great time to step back and really look at what are you doing? And is it bringing you joy? And how do you get back to a business that you actually love? That's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, here's the show. Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. MTFW is part of the Digital Toolbox, and this is your host, Lorraine Ball. You know, this last year, many of us have had to pivot and maybe pivot away from the things that we love in order to keep our businesses afloat. But now's a great time to get recentered and refocused and back to doing the things that make you feel happy and satisfied with your business. And I could not think of a better person to talk to about this subject than my guest, Violet Dialia. And Violet is a Cuban-American serial and social entrepreneur. She is the founder of Fem City and the international best-selling author of The Self-Guided Guru, Life Lessons for the Everyday Human. Violet, thank you so much for joining us today.
I am so excited to be your guest. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Violet, before the show started, you coined a phrase that I really want to explore today, and that's this idea of a heart-centered business. Will you define that for my audience?
Sure. I believe a heart-centered business is when you have purpose, intent, connected to this superhero talent that so many of us have. And we use those elements to go ahead and serve the world to make others either live life better or create bigger businesses. It's all connected to that purpose and that, if you will, soulful and spiritual side of us, but as the entity of a business.
Let's take this idea of a heart-centered business and the reality of the train wreck that was 2020 for many of us. Let's put those two together and say, if I'm going to pivot or adjust or get back on track, where do I start?
Absolutely. And 2020, I think, was for so many, it was a time for pivoting in these drastic measures, right? So we kind of had to move so fast that we really didn't have the ability to always incorporate the soulful or the heartful side of our brands and business. You know, we were kind of just making do with what we have, you know, making the best of what we've got. And so now that we've had a little bit more time to be in this space, you know, it can be a really great time to reflect on what your why is. What's that purpose? What's that thing that you do when you're creating and growing your business that really helps others? And when we stay connected to the service, the purpose, the why, the intention, it loops us back into that heart-centered phrase that we just, we're talking about. And it also starts to kind of remove that focus that we've had so much on, like, I have to make the bills, I have to make, ends meet to pay for my mortgage and for dinner. So when we revert back to that, and we can do that through time, maybe not at the beginning when it's just everything's on fire, but through the time of getting to this new normal, we're able to kind of have this moment and say, you know what, let me go back to, like, what do I really love about what I do? How do I help others? Where's that moment where it brings me so much joy? It fills my cup in using that gift that was given to me, the experience that I've attained throughout life, where I can help others and serve in a bigger capacity.
So if I'm trying to reconnect with that, and I'm thinking, I started this business because I wanted to work with small businesses and help them take control. What do I do as I look inward? Are there maybe some things that I can do to kind of help me check off whether or not I'm running that kind of business, or pull back and kind of get back on track?
Sure, that's an excellent question. And I find that even for myself personally, I go through this exercise often. So even before the pandemic and of course during the pandemic, and then here we are as well, I use this exercise often because sometimes we can connect really deeply and profoundly to the heart-centered business elements and the components. But then we get stuck in the day-to-day, right? We start kind of just clocking in, clocking out, becoming robotic, handling business, almost like we were just machines. And so I find that when you start getting to a point where you're feeling stressed, you're feeling disconnected, you're feeling like, you know what, I don't even want to do this anymore. This is maybe not even my alignment anymore. Maybe I'm just over this. When we get to those moments, I love to look at my tasks to see what are the activities that I'm currently doing, and what are those activities that fill my cup? Which are the ones that really make me smile and make what I'm doing really come to life? in my heart, in my everyday. And then look to see when are you doing those elements? Because generally speaking, sometimes we get away from those. So as an example, with Fem City, when this whole happened, I was going through that kind of like, okay, we have to pivot to online classes. We have to pivot to doing group coaching. We have to pivot to networking online. And so the stress was there. And I found myself feeling really exhausted, filled with anxiety, stressed out. And that's not how I want to show up in the world. That doesn't do anyone any good, either business wise or in my family, if I'm kind of like always on edge. And so I use this exercise to say, what do I really love to do when it comes to Fem City? What are those things that really lift me up? Well, I know I love group coaching, right? So that's why we added that. I love helping people in that kind of setting, and we did it for free. And then I'm like, okay, what else? I really love seeing people learn in our classes. Let's add some of that. So if you're going through that right now, I think the best thing to do is first look to see what really lights your fire. What really makes you feel like, yeah, I love doing that, whether it's being on podcasts or writing another book or lecturing or speaking or forming partnerships, whatever that is, kind of define that. And then once you've defined it, look back and see, like, what are you really working on? What's really happening in your 9 to 5? Because I would probably guess to say it's most likely not those things. And sure, we still have to do the bookkeeping, right? We still have to do all the things that don't fill up our cup, but we can do it less and less, and we can fill those hours with things that really bring us joy. Because as our energy expands, as we become more joyous, and we come across in a higher vibrational level to others around us, they want to be a part of that. It's kind of like feeds off, good attracts good. And so we start getting into that place where then things become happy again. And then we start feeling that, what? I'm aligned once again. I found my place, and then you move forward. But that tweaking will always happen. Every couple months when you feel like that, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so stressed. It's Monday. Oh my gosh, I don't like Monday. Look to see like what's really going on, what's happening here. And I think sometimes the creative side, the evolution side helps to pull us forward.
Absolutely. I had a guest on recently, and Alex was talking about this idea of actually taking an inventory, walking around with a notepad for an entire week and writing down everything you do and approximately how much time you spend doing it. And, like you said, there are those things that have to get done. But he argued that as you looked at that list, find things that you can delegate and find things that you're doing that don't give you joy, that don't move your business forward. If it doesn't fall into one of those two categories, maybe you cross it off completely and say, you know what, not going to do that anymore. And I think that's an important part of stepping back, as you said, to kind of figure out as much what gives you joy, maybe what doesn't.
This is a great time to do that. The time to reflect is now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great excuse to be like, you know what, because of 2020, I got rid of, blah, 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 whatever you were working on. That no longer served me. That was no longer working. And so this is a great time to leverage this, what's going on as we look to the new year, to go ahead and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I love time blocks. So I am a fan already of your guest and that show, because I'm a huge fan of time blocks. And when you look at your time blocks, like I love when people say, oh, the money's not coming in, I don't have any new sales. Well, look at your calendar. How often have you been doing cold calls or following up or networking? Oh, well, not that much, because I'm working on, invoices, or I'm, posting on Instagram. Well, is that your superhero talent? Like, is that really kind of showing up in, money in your pocket? So I love that he shared that, because I absolutely agree, is that when you look to see what you're working on, and then that connection to what you want in life, be it more money or bigger opportunities, or just to have a heart-centered business, to feel that love again, that's the answer. You always have the answer within.
So, one more thing that you think someone can do as they're, again, trying to get back to this heart centered business. One more tip.
Oh my gosh, I have a couple. Let me see if I can string them all together in one. When you serve your client, really embrace that opportunity. Sometimes I see a lot of business owners that they kind of take it for granted, right? And the business comes in, and it's just kind of like this, again, going back to that robotic, but really spend time reaching out to your existing clients. Give them that personal human touch, whether it's a handwritten note or an email or a phone call. Say, hey, I'm just checking in to see how you're doing. How's the service we're providing or the product that you've purchased from us. Handwritten notes go a really long way. No one does them anymore. You'll really stand out if you do
Mhm.
those. Also, giving a little bit more than what's expected is also a great way to show love through your business. So if someone buys a package or a product, adding that little sample in there, that little token of extra love really goes a far way. And even when you're receiving emails, maybe if they're grouchy emails or they're happy emails, really try your best to always respond from the deepest amount of love that you can share when it comes in business, because that will go so far. Sometimes we have people that send us very grouchy emails, like everybody else, right? We all get the grouchy emails. And when we stop and we respond with love, it diffuses that situation and it adds love into their life. And it's generally not because of us. It's generally because something, their child may have thrown up on them, or their car broke down, or they a tire blew again. So sometimes when we get those, we think it's a personal attack, but I always think, often I would say like 99% of the time it's not really bad, that situation. It's so jazzed with like emotion and anger. Just stop and then respond with love, and it will always work in your favor.
Fantastic. Violet, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This was amazing. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
I want to encourage all my listeners to hop over to femcity.com to learn more about you and what you do. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation, if you're looking for more tips and tricks for business owners, be sure to look for MTFW wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been another episode of More Than a Few